Now, what up, friendos? Welcome back. We're talking about metaverses today, everyone's favourite. We're talking about Star Atlas. They've just laid off 73% of their team. Over 100 people, I do believe. 122 people, and they're left down to 45. Now, if you don't know what Star Atlas is, I've covered it on one of my, maybe both my channels now, quite a few times, mostly looking at what I believe to be just a clone of Star Citizen, only worse and on the blockchain. Star Citizen kind of was already the first NFT game without even really knowing it. I think if Star Citizen released nowadays, they probably would have been on blockchain, because what better way to earn money than to sell people pictures of spaceships for even more money than Star Citizen currently does, which is essentially what Star Atlas does. They say, you know, buy these spaceships and one day they'll exist in a game and it'll be the ultimate metaverse, play to win, pay to win. Well, it is definitely pay to win, but play to earn, all these crazy buzzwords that anyone with a brain knows doesn't really work in an MMORPG or a persistent world at all. Gamers don't want it, speculators do, and as we've been proven time and time again right in saying, speculators care until the product comes out and then it's not good, it doesn't get adopted, and then people stop speculating and it goes to zero, because the games are worse for this type of monetization than they possibly could be if they were made normally. But companies like this, like Star Atlas, according to an interview the other day that I was listening to with Michael Wagner, which is the CEO here, stood giving his nice little speech, they've raised $200 million in revenue, apparently, and obviously the majority of that money would have been raised in the bull market. As you can hear here, this is how much money the game raised.
Year. You know, the fact that we've done $200 million in revenue through time is...
So they've done $200 million in revenue, and obviously the majority of this was done during the bull market of cryptocurrency, right? When everything was going crazy and these companies were valued at incredibly stupid amounts because everyone was basically dumping money into a market because they thought line only goes up, but then line goes down and loads of people go bankrupt and they lose loads of money because the line can go both ways or it can stay in the middle. So essentially they raised within a very short period of time $200 million for something that nobody is going to be playing for a real long time as an actual product, and they did so by selling NFTs and cryptocurrency tokens and the transaction fees and things like that for stuff that, again, doesn't exist. People will say, oh no, Kira, you don't understand cryptocurrency. It does exist because you own the asset, but the game doesn't exist, so the asset does nothing, it has no value other than speculating on whether it will one day. So there's some confusing things here. Before we get on to laying off 73% of their team, which obviously doesn't bode well for anybody if you're a fan of this game, or, well, it's not a game, but what it could potentially be, this is obviously really bad news, and obviously it's been spun a little bit to be not quite as bad. But what I'm confused about is that Star Atlas came out last year. We'll all remember in 2022 that FTX, one of the biggest frauds on the planet, allegedly, according to the US government, basically was running a big old scheme, taking tens of billions of dollars of people's money, misappropriating it, using it in whatever means they wanted to, and then went bankrupt, lost it all, just lost all that money. Sad times. And basically, Star Atlas decided in Wagner's infinite wisdom, he thought, what would be a good idea? I know, we'll put our money that we don't need to, that these people gave us for this product, into FTX. And then FTX goes bankrupt and they lose their money. He said, quote, they had a material cash exposure and that his trust had been betrayed by FTX. The company did not say how much cash it lost in the collapse. So he said, based on what they lost, while previously we had multiple years of runway given current operations ahead of us, that has presently been reduced by approximately one half. Now, according to eventual news that came out, basically he was quoted in a lot of these articles as saying they lost $16 million in FTX, which doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense to me. If you've done 200 mil in revenue, and you lost 16 mil, that shouldn't reduce your development runway by half. Doesn't make a ton of sense, especially considering that they later said that after the they lost this $16 million, they claimed back 50% by selling the debt to somebody, essentially, because obviously there's bankruptcy proceedings. So that would mean they lost $8 million, and that has apparently cut down their game runway by half. Financials don't make a ton of sense there, but maybe there's something here I'm missing. But here we go. Let's talk about the layoffs. So nothing about our vision has changed, other than the fact that it's a fucking pretty far away vision. Now, in an exclusive interview, the co-founder and CEO Michael Wagner told Decrypt that the move was necessary to preserve the project's long-term goals. We did have to lay off about 122 people from our team. So there's a sizable reduction in the labor force. Yeah, you could say sizable. Most people would say the majority. Unfortunately, ATMTA cut its team to 45 total people, down from a recent total of 167, and slashed from the 2022 peak of 235. So basically, they've lost like 190 employees since they lost this money. From 235 down to 45 at present. They told Decrypt that the total includes contractors and employees from partner studios that were tapped to co-develop the game, saying that they've essentially been full-time team members. So what they say is this is to accommodate a long runway. Now, you'll hear this a lot in business. People love saying, talking about runways. Essentially what they mean is you're in a plane, your runway needs to be long enough, otherwise you can't take off because you'll go fast and then you'll run out of runway and then you'll blow up and everyone will die. But obviously there's a couple different ways to look at this. If you've already scaled up your company to have a whole bunch of people, that means your runway will be one size, but you'll be going faster, so you might take off faster. When you downsize your team after you've had a bunch of people, that's going to be incredibly inefficient, which means you're going to be wasting more time, plus you'll be going slower, so while the runway might be longer, there's a good chance you might still reach the end and run out of runway. You're essentially trading speed for just a longer duration. So what you're doing here is just hoping to God that you just raise more money. Now, let me just say, if you're a company that's done $200 million in revenue in basically 2 years, nobody wants to be hearing that we've had to fire almost everybody because if we don't, we're just not going to make it. He's also been quoted in this video as saying that the Unreal Engine game, the big old metaverse that everybody bought into and everybody wants, is probably $400+ million to be created, which means that essentially with their $200 million done in revenue and having to fire these people, they're going to have to raise multiple hundreds of millions of dollars additionally to ever get to that point. So what he's saying is, we are essentially going to have to focus on making money instead of making the main product. Otherwise, we will never be able to make the main product. Not a position anybody ever wants to be telling you that they're in. So essentially what he said is they've determined key personnel that will enable us to achieve our long-term vision and still build the variety of product lines that we have in development. He also acknowledged that downsizing could impact game development. Yeah, I'd say so. Particularly when it comes to building out the robust, full-sized version of the game using Unreal Engine, Epic Games' industry standard toolkit for AAA games. The biggest impact is probably to our flagship product line, the Unreal Engine team. That is where we saw major reductions in our co-creation studio engagements. So yeah, essentially they're going to be focusing on the shit that nobody really wants. And if they don't raise enough money, the shit that people did want, it's just not going to happen, is it? Like, the writing's on the wall here. Cryptocurrency is going to have to go crazy for them to raise enough money now to be able to do almost anything. So while we make money every single month, we did not make enough money to cover the expenses of a AAA team that has a multi-million-dollar monthly run rate. So we're scaling down the team to a more sustainable rate to get those products out, specifically focusing on the economy activation, aka activate my economy, because if you don't, we going bye-bye. Your NFTs, your pictures are going to be fucking worthless. So while ATMTA is scaling back its staff, Wagner said the team is forging ahead and plans to rebuild its Unreal Engine team in time. Yeah, if you make way more money, just real loads of money, otherwise you can't, otherwise you wouldn't have had to scale back. So essentially you're going to have to make a ton more money to do this. The long-term target hasn't changed, in other words, but the Star Atlas team is shifting gears amid a difficult crypto market and financial setbacks of your own creation. We're not stopping Unreal Engine development, he said. Nothing about our vision has changed. We're only reprioritizing our efforts on those things that are more immediately repeatable, and we're leveraging that as a way to grow the user base and generate revenue in a more substantial amount. Imagine a company telling you, like 2 years after we've done $200 million in revenue, we just need to generate revenue in a more substantial amount. Not even Star Citizen would be so fucking brazen to say that. So not helping matters is the $16 million that they lost when FTX collapsed in November. At the time, Wagner said that the startup had lost about half of its funds, which became inaccessible when FTX closed withdrawals. We had 16 million on the exchange that was lost now, he said, but they recovered a fairly substantial portion of the funds lost by selling its claim to a distressed investment fund. He said the amount reclaimed in the sale was less than 50% of the amount held at FTX. So yeah, this is the part that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to me, but who knows, maybe I'm totally, just seeing crazy things on this one. So despite the hardships, Wagner is optimistic about the future and building games on the Solana blockchain. I'm also very optimistic after I've, lost a bunch of money and fired 127 staff, and now we only have 45. I can't imagine how anyone in the community couldn't be optimistic about this, because clearly this is a real good change. If things weren't going good before, I mean, they certainly are now. So we've been and continue to be extremely supportive of Solana and the innovation there. I genuinely believe the work that we're doing building on-chain gaming logic is only possible on a network like Solana. So they only launched in January 2021. So it's been like 2.5 years, and they did $200 million in revenue, and they're already having to lay so many people off. Crazy. We didn't have $1, we had a white paper and a dream, he said. We were able to generate hundreds of millions of dollars off of that vision. Even with hundreds of millions of dollars, that was never enough to get us to the completion of Star Atlas. Mate, I'd be fucking raging if I heard the person who I trusted with... This is an investment, by the way. I don't care what anybody tells you. When people say, oh, I bought a Kickstarter pledge for a video game and I invested in it. No, you didn't. This is an investment. People put money into this with the idea that it's going to go up in value as the product develops and matures, and later on they would probably be able to sell it for a whole bunch of money, or at least take advantage of it in an economy where they own the thing, and any time that they can get out and probably make more than they put in. But to be told within 2.5 years after hundreds of millions of dollars going through it that it's this bad, man, I'd be fucking raging. There would be no way you could spin this one in my brain. If you were saying that the game should cost $400 and something million to create the entire vision, obviously if you've raised $200 million, you should at least be able to get like a Star Citizen equivalent alpha out. I mean, Star Citizen's raised 600 mil, and they're still going a decade later, 10 years. So let's math this out a little bit. 600 mil, 10 years. You've been going 2.5 years, 200 mil, and you've already fired the vast majority of your team, meaning it's going to be even slower. Not making a ton of fucking sense to me. So I don't think people should be surprised that we are scaling down in the current environment, when the reality was that we always needed to generate revenue. You did, 200 mil. That was the only way this ever gets to completion, and we're still very much in that model. Nothing's changed there. So there you go. That's Star Atlas. If you want to see what kind of state the game is, they've got this. You can fly around on some little race courses and shoot some things. They have obviously released some stuff on the Epic Game Store, like a showroom or something where you can walk around and, look at ships and things. But obviously, I'm completely out on stuff like this. I'll never buy anything related to any of these, Web3 games or whatever, because... realistically, I don't even think the model works. I don't believe in the model. I think even the messaging behind things like play to earn is fundamentally flawed and come up with by people who don't understand why or how gamers play games in the first place. But obviously, I don't want people to lose all their money, and it looks like this is one that may be the case later on. I don't think they're going to manage to raise, the 400 mil that they're going to need to get this over the finish line. Especially considering now they have so few people. 45 people to make the best game ever, built on technology that isn't mainstream in gaming and hasn't really been done before. To make the Metaverse, this all-encompassing thing that this word is supposed to represent, to make the greatest, biggest MMORPG ever. Yeah, not for me, man. Never for my money, but maybe they'll prove me wrong. Only time does. For the people that are going to show up, and I'm sure this guy will see the video and say he doesn't know what he's talking about, and blah blah blah. Time will prove everybody right or wrong. So all you've got to do to shut me up and prove me wrong is very simple. Just make the product, and when it comes out, it'll be amazing. Everyone will say, Kira, you've got egg on your face there for, having common sense. But realistically, if you do achieve this, it was in the face of overwhelming odds. So I guess good luck, and sorry for all the people that obviously are going to be disappointed by stuff like this. But you're probably not watching the video anyway, and if you are, you're probably angry already and left 10 minutes ago. But there we go. Links in video description, Discord, Twitter, Patreon if you want to give me some money. And yeah, see you next time, I guess. Oh, Twitch as well. Peace.